Let's talk about love and marriage the way that God intended. A life experience, here we share it. The No Fruit Podcast. Tune in from any platform. No Fruit Podcast will help your spirit transform.
Welcome to this wonderful episode, Dr. Dean and HollyKem Sunseri. Thank you so much, both of you, for being on today.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
Yeah, I love that
Wonderful,
song.
wonderful.
I
We're
know.
so glad to have you. So glad to have you. And we're hoping that you will share a little bit with our audience and our listeners, a little bit of your background. And just what does it mean? You know, we hear so much on social media, we hear so much on TV and news in reference to like broken marriages. You know, so many people are getting married, and the statistics are like, I don't know why people are getting married anymore, because they're saying marriages are failing left and right. So talk to us a little bit about like, why are marriages failing? What is a broken marriage?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know,
Yeah.
broken people create broken marriages, right?
Ah,
So it really, one of the things that Holly, Kim, and I, we've been married 33 years, but
wonderful.
sort of the secret sauce of our success was that we were both broken at a certain point, but we really made a commitment to work with and do the things we needed to do to deal with the brokenness. And we were on that path probably a number of years before we met. And so because of that commitment to recognizing really the best and the difficult things that we came from,
Mhm.
we were able to deal with that straight on. And then when we met, we came from very different places. I say, you know, I came from the seminary. I was leaving the seminary. She came from the streets, you know. But what we had in common was this commitment to working on the brokenness that we both had. One of the most dangerous things that can happen is to deny that we have that brokenness, and then we try to fix that in terms of in a marriage, and that's how the marriage breaks. So
Yeah, and I would add to that is that when we think exactly what you were saying, when we think that the marriage is the solution to the brokenness within us,
Mhm.
that whatever happened in my life, may it be something happened in my family, a death, whatever, is that I think that the love that you have for me is going to make that better. And when that doesn't, then I'm very angry with you,
Mhm.
my spouse. So you become the problem because you didn't fix what was broken in me. Versus that I learned to love my own brokenness. I bring that to the altar and to the table. You learn to love your brokenness. You bring that to the altar and to the table. And as we hold hands and love ourselves with each other and support that, then it becomes a different picture, because now I know what I'm bringing to the table, brokenness, but I also know the gifts that I'm bringing.
Right.
So it's what am I giving, not what am I getting, and how are you fixing me?
That's good.
Wow, so if we're listening to your story, right, and you're both coming from opposite sides of the tracks,
Yes.
I get it, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Lori, very opposite. I wasn't even on the track, okay? I was way off the track. It's called almost behind bars.
Oh my.
but in a situation like that, it appears that you don't fit, right?
Yeah.
That you're unequally yoked, or whatever the situation, whatever term we want to use.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so it appears that you might have been broken from the beginning.
Yes.
So how do you overcome that stigma, right? That other people are kind of might put on you. You as a couple, as individuals, are like, hey, you don't deserve this person, you don't deserve that person, all those type of things. How do you make sure that you don't start off in that broken place?
Yeah. Well, I am a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. I've been sober for 42 years.
Great.
I was a convicted felon at 19 years old, divorced when I met Dean, sober for 5 years. However, a lot of baggage
Right.
that came with me. And the truth is that Dean became one of my very good friends because he was in seminary and I really wanted to know more about God through the word.
Mm.
Even though I loved Jesus, I was in the 12 steps, I had a personal relationship with God, obviously he knew things I didn't.
Mhm.
So when he wanted to, after he got out of seminary, he wanted to be closer to me and wanted me to be his girlfriend or whatever, I did not feel worthy.
Right.
Mhm.
So no doubt about that. I felt that he deserved someone without all of those scars
Right.
and without all that baggage. However, he did not, he said no. And he just waited until I could heal some more to feel that I was worthy
Mhm.
of that innocent love and
Mm.
that purity that he brought to the table. Even though he had his own brokenness from his own life, he was working through.
Mhm.
But what happens is that if you have, come from a history like myself, that what all of us are working on, mine just looks different,
Yeah.
is that are we worthy of what God has for us?
Right.
Mm.
Even though the world may judge me, and they did, and I judged myself,
Mhm.
Mhm.
but God didn't judge me. God loved me.
Mhm.
When I could see myself through his eyes and I could feel that love, then it was that I was worthy of all that he had for me, all of his promises. So as I continue to walk with him and I continue to love myself and allow others to love me in the truth of my brokenness and the truth of who I was, then I could receive the love that Dean had for me and I could give the love that was in me to him.
That's
Yeah.
great.
It's interesting too that go along with that,
Mhm.
that we all deal with our brokenness differently.
Mhm.
Yes.
And sometimes the way we deal with it looks really negative.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
So, if you're shooting cocaine,
Yeah.
that looks pretty bad. It's like, okay,
Right.
that's not a good way to deal with your brokenness. But sometimes you deal with your brokenness in positive behaviors. And I'm not
Yes.
talking about that the positive behaviors are bad. Like for myself, I had a combination of authentically pursuing God in the seminary, but there was also an aspect of hyper religiosity. There was an
Mm.
unhealthy aspect that was a way of coping with my own pain that was really unhealthy. So I needed to separate that. But my hyper religiosity wasn't that much different than her drug use.
Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
Both were dissociating from our emotional pain and running from it.
Mhm.
And so when I began to understand that it might look different for you than it does for me. We all have ways that we try to cope with our emotional pain.
Mhm.
And, one of the people that suffers the most is someone that deals with their emotional pain through, say, workaholism,
Mhm.
and they can't stop working. Now, there's nothing wrong with being successful at work, but when you're neglecting your kids and neglecting your marriage and neglecting everything that's important to you, it's causing negative results, but it looks good,
Mhm.
Right.
right?
Anxiety.
So that was important to see, is to look at our coping behaviors and to don't put it just in the category of good or bad, but to know that these can be unhealthy ways. And that's what we both were working
Yeah.
on when we met each other. We were on this journey. So even though it looked like we were very different, we were very much in the same line because we were both pursuing our spiritual connection with God. We were
Mhm.
both pursuing emotional healing. We were both making a commitment to a lifestyle of honesty and trying to be very real about our histories. We're both learning to be more emotionally awake and to
Mm.
be able to communicate that. And because of that, we were actually very compatible.
Mhm.
Wow. So, as I'm listening, and we're talking about past traumas and things like that, I'm gonna give you my own little personal situation, and this is where you talk about good or bad. So, my wife has a challenge with me when I buy a whole bunch of toys, right?
And toys are expensive too.
And so if you were to come here, I mean, I love Transformers, so I have a gazillion of them, right? And so my wife looks at me rather strange anytime another one crosses the threshold. Most definitely, right? You see your face right now, right? But that comes from me as a kid not having
Mm.
certain things,
Mhm.
so sometimes we don't go far back enough in understanding where some of the trauma, where some of the points of struggling or whatever it is.
Pain
So
points.
sometimes, how do we recognize that? Because it's something is, buying a toy doesn't seem like it's damaging to a relationship, but
Right.
actually it has, right? So how do
Once
we
it
even
reaches about
recognize that?
once it reaches 2,000, then it does become a problem.
Now, is that 2,000 toys or $2,000? Like, so there might be two different
2,000
things.
Transformers.
But I love this, Maurice. This is so good because here you are, this Christian man, this good man, obviously. You know, it's like us being together. You can't fake it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
I mean, you've been doing this for 6 years, okay? You can't fake this.
Right.
After a while, you can see it, right?
Right.
So, in that is that there's this wound that somewhere in your life, okay, so innocent. I'm sure your parents had their lives and things that, they were wounded by, just like ours. They can only do what they've been taught. They can't do more than that, just like us. And there were things that had to be purchased that couldn't be a toy.
Right.
Had nothing to do with, did I want to get you the toy? Did I think you deserve the toy? I would bend over backwards for the toy, but you needed shoes, you needed clothes, we needed electricity, your brother needed this, somebody had to go to the hospital, whatever it was, there was necessity prior to joy and happiness, not joy, because joy comes from the Lord, but happiness, right? And just having that, funness. How many nights did they cry because they couldn't give you the transformer?
Right.
Okay. So their hearts are broken. However, they know as an adult what they have to do.
Right.
Okay. No matter what that was it 3 jobs? Was it, whatever. So, but for your little wounded self, right, that never got the little transformer, got toys, but not that, right? And your eyes lit up like a Christmas tree when you saw them, or your friend had them, or your cousin had them, but you didn't.
Right.
So today, what happens to us all, it's a great example, is that your wounded self wants the toy, right? Wants that thing. And so your protector, your true self says, okay, if I bring this toy home, if I bring this transformer home, Kay is not going to be happy.
Right. Right.
This is not going to be a good night. And then your protector self says, but Lil Maurice never had that thing.
Right.
And you know what? I make a lot of money and I do well. And I'm going to get Kay something. I'm going to get her something. I'm going to bring her some flowers with transformer. Okay. And because I love Kay, but I got to have this toy. I got to have this transformer. I just have to. So he buys the transformer. He buys the flowers, right? She's grateful for the flowers, honey. Thank you for the flowers. I love the flowers. But it doesn't work because she's like, honey, I just need you to understand that for us as a couple, we need to talk about that you get $1,000 a year to buy transformers, but you can't just buy them every day or every week or once a month because it's just not healthy for all of us. But for little Maurice, he's like, I gotta have it. I gotta have it. But when we understand and we can go deeper and deeper that, did my parents, like for myself, I grew up in a very violent home. And my parents were divorced and, a lot, just messy, alcoholism, just mess. And, did my, for me, I was like, did my parents love me? Yes, there's no doubt. Did my parents love themselves enough to do what it took to be more kind to themselves? No. Now, so when I say that, I'm like, well, then they couldn't give me the things that I truly deserved.
Right.
But they couldn't give themselves it either.
They were broken.
Right. And no matter who their child was, it would have been the same outcome. So once I could just totally allow them to be wounded and be who they were and do the best they could, even though it was nowhere what I deserved. All of a sudden, it was like, I don't have to fix my wounds anymore. I just have to love them.
Yeah.
So there was no drugs. There's no jewelry. There's no There's no clothes. There's no nothing that can fix the shame of where I came from.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden, it became about that it wasn't from the lack of love, it was from their woundedness that they couldn't give me everything that I deserved.
Wow.
And then that allows me to love myself and give myself all the things that I did deserve, which is really love, not
Mhm.
toys and not clothes.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and
That's
it's
good.
Yeah,
that's part of what we talk about in our
yeah,
book is
yeah,
our woundedness and
yes,
how we have reactions to our
yes,
woundedness.
Mhm.
We have our actions, and our reactions to our woundedness sometimes take a life of their own.
yeah,
So, for example, there was a time with my dad when he was 7 years old, his dad suddenly died, and they went from a middle class lifestyle to poverty. And there were times when they didn't have food in the
food,
refrigerator,
Right.
and they were just concerned about that.
right,
So he ended up going to college, successful engineer,
right. And
does really well,
yes,
sent us to the finest schools and so forth. But to this day,
to this day, 86,
he's 80,
87 years
87
old.
years old. If
Healthy as a horse, too.
the refrigerator gets low of food,
Oh,
he's
yeah,
going to the
baby.
grocery,
He's at the
right?
grocery.
So he's
Yes.
compelled to go to the grocery to fill up the refrigerator.
Mhm.
In some sense, it's not that big of a deal, but he's
But
reacting from the wound.
yeah,
I mean, he
Right.
could spend the rest of his life eating out every day,
right,
and
But the
but
fridge has to be stocked.
right.
right, the fridge has to be stocked
It
because he's
has to
still
be
being
stocked.
compelled by the
Mhm.
wound
Right.
and
Being
reacting
hungry.
to it as opposed to the present situation.
Mhm.
And it's not that big of a deal, but we all have our own thing like
Right.
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So what needs to be nurtured really is the wound because that's the engine that's
Mhm.
driving the car. So yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what I would say, okay, it's just a suggestion as a coach, is that y'all would plan together
Mhm.
to buy you a transforming toy. And that you and her would go together and you would tell her why you like that one, why you like that one, how's this one different than that, and how's that one different. And then it becomes an experience of you expressing how how much joy this gives you. And then she gets to say, write down 3 of those that you want over the next year. And don't you dare purchase those 3. And let me love you and give you those, or let the children buy those for you, or let somebody else purchase those. Because in that giving to you, you will receive something because it will be exactly what you've always wanted, that another gave you something that was so important.
Mhm.
And then that way, she becomes part of the experience. She becomes part of the healing. And then all of a sudden, what starts to heal is not the toy,
Mhm.
but what was important to you, and that people that love you want to participate.
That's really good. That's really
Yeah, because I was going to ask, have you been in that conversation?
That's
No,
No,
beautiful.
that's really, really good. We were
The
just at the store the other
host knows.
day, and I said, "Do you need to go to the toy section?" He's like, "Why? We're here to get, laundry supplies." I said, "Yeah, and you need to go to the toy section." He
Oh, I
says, "I
love
don't have to go to the toy section." I said, "Every time we come into the store, you have to go to the toy section."
oh, I love it.
So, you're like he said, you're all over our conversation the last couple of days. And we've tried this in the past years when it's come to the holiday time, and he'll write out his list sometime in the summer of what he wants for Christmas.
Yes.
And he'll list out all of those Transformers that he wants. And he lets us know when they're coming out because they come out at different times. And he'll let me know there's only a few left. Did you order it yet? If you're not going to order it, I will get it. And I'm like, you let us know you want this. Like, it's not. So I understand totally what you're saying, and I receive it. I hope, Maurice, you do as well, that it's not necessarily the toy itself and missing out on what you
Right.
didn't have as a child, but what
Right.
you didn't have as a child, meaning someone didn't give it to you. So I think
Mm.
that's the next part of understanding it's not the item itself, but it's that relationship portion
Right.
of it, of, hey, mom was not able to provide that for me.
Sure.
And you feel as though you have to do it yourself. And again, it's the whole same thing. Like, hey, you've given us the list, but you kind of discount it and say, okay, if you're not going to get it, then I'll get it for myself. So you step in of trying to be savior and fix it, and not allowing us to step back, or allowing yourself to step back and allowing someone else to get it for you because, again, of your past trauma of not having it, from mom or from grandmom or whatever. So
And impatience.
And impatience, yeah.
Well,
So,
the impatience is exactly what Kay's saying. You're so right, Kay, is that the impatience is that if I don't get it, the pain that went with it before, that I wasn't heard or wasn't seen, was for that wounded part, that's real.
yeah,
Okay. Now, when we go deeper and deeper and deeper, it's like, no, they wanted to do it, but they couldn't. You know how it is as parents. There's just times you can't. I want that Mercedes. Okay, thank you very much. So do I. And you can't do it, right?
Right.
A Mercedes to us today could have been that transformer when you were a little boy to them, right? I mean, it's a different. It's different.
Right.
So in that, it's like the fear and the anticipation that I don't receive it, that pain's going to come out of me. And the protector has one job for us internally, is to stop the pain at any cost. And that's why, like, how could you be a drug addict and, shoot dope and, put your life on the line and be in these dangerous situations with cartels and all of this stuff? Well, my protector had one job. It was to stop the pain at all costs. And that is death. That is death. So it's like, for him, it's like, I'm going to get that toy. Protector, I'm going to get that toy, because I can't let this thing, he believes that if I get that toy, then little Maurice is not going to be upset.
Right.
But if that was true, then, the toy would cause the pain to always go away.
Right.
It's another toy, right? For these two parts.
Yeah.
Versus that I deserve, I like to make the toy, like our son's a Lego guy, right? And he goes, this is how I de-stress, Mom. He doesn't drink. Well, now he might have a little drink now and then, but he really doesn't drink. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He doesn't go out. He like saves his money. So his relaxation as a man is he does Legos. He also has to understand, there has to be limits.
Yeah.
Right? Because he has to save and he's got to do things. And even when you're wealthy, it doesn't fix the gig, right? Just a moment. But when you get to that emotional thing, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, what does this transformer give me? And then what does it give me if Kay gives it to me? How does that do? My children. And then if my protector buys it, it's going to be a whole nother thing.
It's different dynamic.
Different dynamics, because that's the healing of it all. That we're giving it to you because we want you to know that you are loved. We hear you and you're important to us.
Yes.
And we want to give you something that makes you happy. But the truth is that I don't care if you own the transformer manufacturing, it will never heal the wound. See, that's the sad. And that's what we believe, is that it will heal the wound. It won't heal the wound.
Right.
Wound has to be loved by us and God, and then allow, like my husband to love it with me. I'm allowing him. Okay. But that's many tears and many things. But I always say, like, if my wound is 1,000 pounds strong, my protector is 1,000 pounds strong. So every time I love this with truth and honesty, without blaming, without being, not nice to them, but just it is what it is, then this goes down to 900. Guess what happens over here? This goes down to 900. It may take me to the end of my life when I cross over that I never feel this again. But that's a lot of people want that to be the goal. Like, I want this to go away.
Right.
No, my goal is that I love it, that I keep loving it. And if it takes a lifetime, it takes a lifetime. If it takes eternity, it takes eternity. But we know when we cross, there's no more pain, right?
Right.
There will be a day when I won't feel it, but it's my job to love it, because there's so much deepness to it, not just that I didn't get the toy, right? It's a symbol of a lot of things. So I get to love myself through that. And by doing that, every time one of my children or my grandchildren or whoever comes into my space, I learned how to love their wounds
Mhm.
Mhm.
because I'm learning to love mine.
Yeah.
And I become what I didn't get.
Mhm.
That's good.
Wow. You know, we could go on for about another
Yes.
3 or 4 hours. But in
We
all
are
honesty,
broken up today.
we thank you very much for coming on the show.
Hmm.
We would love for you to probably have a part 2 to this, to be
Definitely.
honest.
Yes.
And
Sure.
but please, for those individuals that are looking for wound care,
Yes.
right? And they need to talk to somebody, how can they reach out to you, to either one of you? Maybe I need you together, maybe I need separate, moments or whatever it is, but how they can reach out and find you so they know how to move forward with their wound care.
Yeah, that's so good. When we started with Broken People Create Broken Marriages, my son was getting married, and I said he wanted me to do the wedding because I'm also a pastor,
Hmm.
and I said under one condition, you do our program Transform You, which is an online intensive program, just so that they could do the healing work, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
So that's one of the things we offer is we have an intensive online
Yeah.
program called Transform You,
Mhm.
and it almost sounds like your toys, but anyway,
Mhm.
all that can be found at ihaveavoice.com. There's also a link to our book, A Roadmap to the Soul, which is actually an application of our process of healing, but people that want to go deeper do Transform You. And you can also contact us through that at ihaveavoice.com.
Yeah. And what we did, Camers, is that we've both been therapists for over 35 years. We took everything we've done, all of our coaching and all the work that we've done on ourselves. We wrote a book about it. And then because of the way the world is today, which is, the good part is that we wrote an online course
Mhm.
that you can do it in your house, which
Yeah.
I love.
Yes.
And from there, you watch the videos, do the assignments, and then we offer 2 live online coachings a week that you can come to. And so it's a 4-month course. And then what's been interesting for us is that people stay on the platform because after they get the concept and they get it going, they want to continue the process and do it again. I'm like, you want to do it again? I love it. And because it's like, no, I want to, I want to get it more as a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because as a lifestyle, they're like, man, something happens and they're like, I'm at work and I get triggered, and then all of a sudden they can figure it out really quick, and they come back on the Zoom, and they're like, I can't even believe it. I was able to get through that so quick, and
Yes.
I understood exactly what it went to, and I didn't drink the 7th cup of coffee or whatever it was,
Mhm.
Right.
But it's been really powerful because I don't have to be there every day with them, because that's the
Mhm.
goal, right? As I'm
Mhm.
being a parent, right? That we teach, we empower, we impart, and then they
Mhm.
move on to live their best life. So it's been great being able to do that, and then have it with, like, we have somebody from Hong Kong, we have Hawaii, we have Canada, we have a lot, people from all over the world, and it's like, wow, getting to love people all over.
Nice,
That's great.
nice.
Yeah.
And I think it's been a pleasure hearing what you've been talking about. Like I said, we did our research, so we saw the information that you're providing, and it just so happened I didn't know it was gonna come out this way when we talk about the toy, but we understand that that transition from
Mhm.
looking like what we were yesterday. We don't have to be like that today,
Mhm.
and we definitely don't have to be like that tomorrow.
Right.
So we thank you very much for being able to share that through this process today, and thank you for our one show counseling.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Get
been
a little
such
coach.
fun. Such fun. But before we let you go and continue the rest of your day, I do have one more question for the both of you.
Okay.
Again, we've gathered so much information from
Mhm.
you. It's quite a value, not only for us, but also for our listeners.
Mhm.
But for our listeners, one more thing that I'm sure they all want to know about you. If you could sing a duet with anyone in the world, living or deceased, who would you sing that duet with?
Oh, well, I have to sing it with this person because I can't carry a tune. I would sing it with Jesus
Yes.
Okay.
because I love him. I really, really love
Love him,
Jesus
yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
And I would sing it with Jesus, and I would let him lead,
As you already do.
I would hope that he would sing louder than me. But I would definitely,
Yes.
sing. Yeah.
Great.
Mine's not quite as spiritual.
Okay. Well, come on, Dr. Dean.
I would love to sing with Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra. Oh, okay. Yes.
Frank Sinatra.
Dean can
Great.
sing,
Yeah.
Yes.
He can do everything. I asked the Lord, why can he do everything, Lord?
Oh,
Humble. I'm like, okay, I understand.
yes. You are blessed. You're blessed.
I'm working
Yes.
on it.
Great.
Those are two great selections.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that if y'all did a quartet, it would sound even better.
It would be.
It would be quite a quartet.
That'd be wonderful.
Oh, goodness.
But we thank y'all very much for coming on, and we appreciate you being good sports and answering that question as
Yes.
well.
And all of your information that you.
I know the song too.
Oh, what song would you do?
Instead of singing My Way, we would have to point to Jesus.
I know.
Yes.
His way,
His
right?
way.
God's way. Yes.
His
Do
way.
it God's way. Yes.
He
Wonderful.
did it his way.
And I would be in the background. Yes.
Yeah, I know. You might not have to sing so much. That's the ad lib. That's the ad libs.
Hey, the Bible says make a joyful noise unto the Lord. So bring it out, so. But we thank you both so much. We've had so much fun and such a joy to be with you during this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
All the information that you shared with us today will be in our show notes. So for all of our listeners, you can certainly be able to just click and connect with both of these two wonderful individuals later on when you have your spare time and you are, looking inner and finding out what voice you have, you'll be able to certainly reach out to them. So we thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the No Fruit Podcast.
And we will talk to you just a little bit later.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the No Fruit Podcast, where we bring you fruitful conversations, ripened wisdom, and love that's deeply rooted. We hope today's discussion left you feeling uplifted, encouraged, and ready to take on life's journey with purpose. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration in their day. You can catch up on past episodes, send us your thoughts, or learn more about us on social media. Until next time, stay rooted in love, and remember, every seed you plant today shapes the fruit of tomorrow. Take care, and we'll see you next time.